Hello, BookTube. I know it's a bit of an odd location and also an odd thing, a thing we haven't done on this channel in quite some time, a shelf tour. I have recently been talking on this channel about how I'm doing a massive book reorganization, how I'll probably get rid of 1,000 books and then start a massive systematic reorganization of everything with an aim of getting my physical books under control. Quite a few of you said, haven't you done this 10 times while you've had a channel? To which I say, zip it. and a few other people have said, well, once you've done that, which you're planning on doing by the end of this year, won't that be the perfect occasion for a library tour? I haven't done a soup to nuts library tour in a long time. And the reason is simple. Every time I start a soup to nuts library tour, I have to stop because my library is not static. It changes all the time. And you reach a certain point, I reach a certain critical mass where I'm thinking, well, okay, I could keep going. I could go to another bookcase, but two of the bookcases I've already done are now completely different. So what's the point of this? Maybe this big reorganization will be an occasion for that. But in the meantime, it's Nonfiction November. A booktube event, an old booktube event created by Olive at a Book Olive, designed to celebrate nonfiction, to get you to read some if you read none, to get you to read more if you read some, to get you to read only nonfiction in the month if you're feeling daring, or in a couple of my recent videos, to get you to try your hand at writing nonfiction. And I thought we would go through a couple of shelves here in the little book room and look for nonfiction, just at random, just as a nonfiction video to do today. The shelves here in the little book room, a couple of them have organization, most of them do not. This is the Holy Grail. This is the Mecca for books. They all want to end up here. So I don't know. There'll be fiction mixed in, and we won't do the fiction. So what have we got first? Is Transwise books. Oh, the first one, okay, is this lovely old Harcourt paperback of the Venice Observed by Mary McCarthy. I had many editions of this thing, but this one is just a neat trade paperback with very little in the way of page yellowing. This is Mary McCarthy's little book about Venice, where she was well informed by those who knew that there was nothing original or interesting to say about Venice, that a million books have been written on the subject. She decided to go and try it and managed to write an interesting book. Okay, all right. This next one is this is by H.R. Keating. This is The Bedside Companion to Crime. A cute little book about types of murder mysteries, murder mystery industry trivia, things like that. I go back to this thing. I try to go back to everything here in the little book room, but I go back to it because I find murder mysteries endlessly fascinating, but I also find the world of murder mysteries, of writing murder mysteries and selling them and the fads in them. I also find that wildly interesting. Let's see here. Okay, all right. This is another one I go back to often. This is edited by Susanna Carson, and this is A Truth Universally Acknowledged, where a bunch of writers are asked what they think about Jane Austen and why they keep going back to her. And it's delightful, just as delightful as it sounds. Okay, the next one is a novel, so we'll skip that. That's also a novel, so we'll skip that. There's a collection of short stories, so we'll skip that. Oh, here we go. This is a staple for March Mystery Madness. This is edited by Howard Haycraft, and this is The Art of the Mystery Story. It has all sorts of different ruminations on mystery stories. Not so much an anthology of mystery stories themselves. Okay, that's fiction. That's God Emperor of Dune, and a battered old trade paperback. We don't want that. We don't want any fiction. Maybe we'll do two shelves to leaven out the fiction here. Oh, okay. All right. Well, this next one is nonfiction. This next one is nonfiction. There's a long story behind it that gives it a special place in my heart here. But that long story need not concern us. This is from 2017. Here, let's get all this junk off this. We might as well. I mean, this is from 2017. This is Bill Shutt's book, Cannibalism, with a frog eating a frog, where he writes about cannibalism in the natural world, how prevalent it is, far more prevalent than you think, how foundational it is to species success and survival. Plenty of species live in cutthroat environments where food is scarce, and then all of a sudden there's helpless protein right there. Whether it's if it's a nearby member of your own species spawning 10,000 offspring all at once, or if it's not only a member of your own species, but a member of your own friend group, family group that's spouting those same cloud of offspring, you'll eat them. You'll often eat them. Also, Shutt mostly concentrates on the way that animal species do cannibalism for survival. Because there's no food. Because that's the easiest food. It's literally helpless protein. But he also spares some time for other motivations. Many apex carnivores, for instance, will kill their rival and then kill their rival's offspring. In a very Oedipal thing that they nevertheless do regularly. I fought hard to review this book, but I did not succeed. Okay. This next one is nonfiction, but it's nonfiction done like fiction. This is a book by Jack Miles called God, A Biography, in which he has the idea to treat God in the Old Testament as a character in fiction, as if the Old Testament had been written by one person or one inspiring ethos. Now, no offense to you religious people, but it was not. It most certainly was not. But what if you tried to read it that way? What would you say about this weird, wild, mad character? And does the character change over time? Now, the character of the Christian God does change over time. He gradually disappears. As all mythological gods do. Because the closer you get to anything like scientific rationalism, the closer you get to people trying to understand how things work instead of just ascribing them to goblins, the more you're going to realize that all these big, huge things that your God did in the mysteries, in the mythology that you tell your children, stopping the sun in the sky, flooding the world, all that sort of stuff, you'll realize the closer you get to that kind of thinking that it doesn't happen anymore. And that when something bad happens, its causes are immediately understandable. So that is one of the changes that this character undergoes, is that he gets less and less present, less and less personally present. At the beginning of the story, for instance, famously, he is walking in the garden in the cool of the evening and is limited in what he knows by what he can see. So if he can't see something, he has to call out and ask where it is. Very, very human traits. But it's utterly, utterly wonderful. Jack Miles did a sequel about Jesus Christ, about a crisis in the life of God in the New Testament. And then he did a third book on God in the Quran that I thought was unsuccessful for a reason that ought to disgrace fundamentalist Islam. I think he pulled his punches in that book because he was afraid of having his house bombed, or meeting the kind of woolly, physical, violent resistance that still sometimes happens in this kind of context, and it's kind of disturbing, kind of depressing. I could be wrong. He might just the Quran is famously impenetrable. It could be that Jack Miles, coming from a Christian tradition, just didn't feel as comfortable with that book. Whatever the reason is, I thought the third book was not as successful as the first two. And this one is amazing, just amazing. No matter what, no matter where you stand on religion. Okay, the next one's fiction. Okay, then we have Ann Patchett. This was a great find at a library book sale. This is her collection of long essays that she did for Harper's. Is that right? Is that right? Where did a lot of these originally appeared? Maybe your acknowledgments will tell me, because now I want to know. A lot of these I read in was it Harper's? I know the collection is called These Precious Days, and that essay is incredible. The essay by that name, These Precious Days. And I know I saw that in Harper's. It was the best thing I read in Harper's that year, or maybe even that decade. Uh, yeah, Harper's, New York Times, New York Times again, New York Times again, Washington Post. Okay, so These Precious Days, I think, is the longest thing in here. This is a collection of nonfiction from a novelist, and some of the things in here are really, really good. They're occasional prose. These Precious Days is the only thing in here that really feels as if it's not occasional, as if it was. The feel of a real essay is whether it's real or not, and the feel is often simulated, but you have to simulate it convincingly, is that you had to write this thing. The feel of a real essay is that it is the opposite of occasional prose where you have a deadline and a remit of what you have to do. The feel of a real essay is that it's an expression of internal things that had to have expression. That's the only piece in here that feels that way, but all the rest of them are really, really good. For instance, she was commissioned to write an introduction to a new collection of Eudora Welty, I think, that occasioned her to think about Eudora Welty and write a pretty good short piece. I was really happy to find that. For this collection, These Precious Days, I got an e-copy of it, and I got the advanced copy. I never got the finished copy from the publisher. 2021. The publisher never sent me a hardcover. And then years later, I found it at a library book sale. That's just great. All right, great. Here we have Richard Dawkins, The Ancestor's Tale. Before whatever the reason was, legal or otherwise, where he had to put someone else's name on the cover along with his. This was before then. It's a big book telling basically Canterbury Tales about evolution. The evolution of flight, the evolution of the eye. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's like the Pilgrims in Chaucer's story. Each had a different little story of wonder or fascination to tell about evolution by means of natural selection. I love it. I think it's my favorite Richard Dawkins book. It's one of those books, one of those works of nonfiction that has something incredible on every page. Okay, then we have, this person's name came up just recently on this channel. This is Cynthia Moss. This is her great book, Elephant Memories, where she writes about a group of elephants, a herd of elephants that she got to know. The mothers, the grandmothers, the daughters, the aunts. She got to know them all really well. She got to know their individual personalities. It started out with her realizing that the outlines of an African elephant's ear will be almost as good as a fingerprint for identifying them, for picking them out of a crowd. The book starts out with her only being able to know these people that way, and then she gets to know much more of what they look like and what they act like and follow their drama. And it's also wonderfully written. It's just an amazing book. This had a mass market paperback. I think after that it had a trade paperback. I don't think Elephant Memories is in print anymore, but it's a classic of studying the African elephant. Okay, all right. This is another one that I fought for and I failed. Oh, this is bringing back a lot of fond memories. This is from 2018. I fought to review this one and it didn't work. This is by Heather Montgomery and it is called Something Rotten: A Fresh Look at Roadkill. It's everything you wanted to know about roadkill and were afraid to ask. It's how roadkill happens, what seasons it happens, how many survivors are there that don't become roadkill. Also the huge industry, passionately followed industry of people who eat roadkill, collect it and eat it, and the various ways that you go about doing that. Also the public service announcements that come through here that roadkill can be dangerous, but also that some kinds of roadkill, maybe if you're out and about, no one's on the road, there's no danger of you getting hit if you get out of your car, maybe some are worth examining. Some are worth getting out of the car. For instance, take two nightmare scenarios. You're driving down the road and you see a dead, full-grown black bear on the side of the road. Well, depending on what season of the calendar it is, it could very well be that black bear's cubs are nearby, that their mother got hit and they watched it and are terrified and are also helpless. You could step in there and get them to the right groups, the right rehab groups and whatnot. Also, a famous example, possums. North America's only marsupial. Uh, they are often roadkill. And if you're driving down a road, again, if you're not going to put your life in danger by getting out to examine it, if you're driving down the road and you see a big dead adult possum, it's entirely possible that they have kits in their pouches, that they were traveling across the road with their young, and the young might still be alive and can be rescued. But mostly this is just about grossing you out. It's a huge amount of fun along those lines. Extremely successful along those lines. Unfortunately, in my particular case, it grossed out an editor, so I never had a chance. Should we do another shelf? Uh-oh. Yes, we could do another shelf, but it's going to get me yelled at. Like, for instance, there's this. This is the Norton Anthology of English Literature, Volume 1, the 4th edition. I love these things. I think Norton anthologies are so good. Don't dismiss them as just textbooks. There's a mind-boggling amount of work that goes into these, and a good deal of it is nonfiction. It spans the whole spectrum. That's Volume 1, and this is Volume 2 with a Turner painting on the cover there. And then Norton Anthologies also did a great set of American literature. For that, I have only Volume 2. Haven't found Volume 1, but I will. The key when you're looking at these things out in the wild is, of course, they're used in schools, exclusively in schools. They're not sold in normal retail bookstores. So there are two cautions when you find one of these things in a used bookstore. Caution number one is that you have to make sure that you are getting an early enough Norton Anthology. Because, as I've mentioned before, these have been totally ideologically captured. So the Norton Anthology of American Literature or English Literature now is going to be 2 volumes. They're going to be just as big, but they're going to contain probably 60% trivial D-list non-entities who are chosen for identity politics reasons instead of the worth and enduring merit of their works. It's insulting to them. It's insulting to you as the reader. The publishers don't seem to realize that. Most readers don't seem to get that. It's all very insulting. So you have to make sure that the Norton Anthology or any anthology that you're getting is early enough, but you also have to make sure that they're not grotesquely highlighted with those neon markers, because they're used in schools, so they easily could be. Okay, the next is fiction. And that's fiction, and that's fiction, and that's fiction. Oh, here we go. This is from May of 2016. This is a great book. This is America's Snake, The Rise and Fall of the Timber Rattler. This is about rattlesnakes, and it's terrific. No matter how off-putting the subject is, this is just terrific. It's a first-rate work of natural history. Never seen the finished copy. The publisher sent me an electronic copy, and they sent me this. I think I wrote about it. But they never sent the finished copy. Who is the publisher in question? Who are the bad guys here? The University of Chicago. I've never seen a finished copy of this out in the wild. I've never seen a hardcover of this anywhere. This is the only time I've ever seen this book. But it's really, really good. But we only had like 2 nonfiction on that shelf. Should we do another one? Let's do one more shelf to get this to 20. Okay, that's fiction. That's fiction. That's fiction. Here we go. J.A. Symonds. This is Renaissance Italy. This is an abridgment of a big set of books that he did. Is this Modern Library? Yeah, this is a Modern Library giant. This is Italian Renaissance history written so wonderfully. Oh, so wonderfully. Such wonderful prose here. That maybe you shouldn't care that a little bit here and there of Renaissance history studies has actually gone beyond this book. Because these volumes came out, this is volume 2. Never seen volume 1. I think there's a volume 3. Yeah, these came out 100 years ago. And I it's the case with books here in the little book room is that, like the Norton Anthology of American Literature, I have volume 2. I don't have volume 1. Like the Renaissance in Italy, I have volume 2. I don't have volume 1. But I will see the other volumes of these things. Or I'll see a set and just junk these in favor of the set. Then we have G.F. Young. This is his great big book on the Medici. This is also a Modern Library giant. Yeah. This is also a Modern Library giant, and this is amazingly good. It's not just the famous Medici, although they get the bulk of the spotlight. This is just everybody, and it's just wonderful. There have been so many. This also is 100 years old. Yes, there have been so many yeah, 1933. There have been so many family histories, big sprawling histories of the Medici since then, and this is still better than any of them. Okay, then from 2012, so before we were talking to each other, this is Rick Bass, The Black Rhinos of Namibia. This is another example where I got the advance copy and that's it. The publisher is Harper or Harcourt, HMH. Yeah, I never got. Yeah, Houghton Mifflin. I never got the finished copy of this thing, and I've never seen it. I've never seen this in a used bookstore. So I hold on to this because Rick Bass is a great writer. I don't care what he writes about. In this case, he's writing about Namibia's rhinos that are mighty big and mighty poorly tempered at all times. They're awful fast. They're awful strong. But they don't have all the best senses in the world. And really, why do they need them? They're not vulnerable to anything in the natural world. And then we can finish up with 4 volumes of nonfiction. These are the collected essays and letters of George Orwell. So we've got An Age Like This, In Front of Your Nose, My Country, Right or Left, and As I Please. And these are all just occasional prose by Orwell. And I go back to these volumes all the time. I love digging through them. There's always something in a little corner here or there that I thought I knew and didn't, or that I was paying attention to or wasn't. I saw this set. I've seen it forever and ever, but I've for most of my reading life, I have had a bit of an axe to grind against Orwell, and I was willing grudgingly to admit that his nonfiction didn't really deserve that his nonfiction at least was really, really good, but it didn't matter. So I would see this set in used bookstores and I would just ignore it. And then the penny dropped. I was up at Mark Richardson's old house in Vermont, and I saw he has a box set of the trade paperbacks of this exact 4-volume set. And I saw that and thought, yeah, that's been long enough. You really want that. I don't know about the rest of Orwell, but you really want that set. I didn't steal Mark's set because A, I was a guest, and guests don't do that sort of thing. But B, for me, I'm terrible with box sets, with slipcases of any kind. I'm really clumsy with them. And those trade paperbacks of his seemed impossible to get out of that set. I actually tried to get one of those volumes out of the box, and I couldn't do it. So I figured, if it's true for him, it'll be true for me. If I find that box set at the Prattle, I won't be able to use it. But it turned out that very shortly afterwards, I found these 4 and just grabbed them. So there you go. That is actually a little bookcase here in the corner here, and that's all the nonfiction that's on here. Just a random nonfiction tour for Nonfiction November. Maybe we should do another one. Maybe we should. There's a bookcase piled on top of this one. We could do that. Maybe. Anyway, now I've got to figure out some sort of way to get up. So I will go about that, and if I succeed, I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.